It started simple. It had to. Snow fell in big, lazy flakes over Miller Street while my old Chevrolet idled in the driveway, heater coughing its way into usefulness. My phone buzzed against the dashboard with a text from my neighbor, Doug. Saw police cars at the Hendersons again. Domestic situation. Made me think of you and your family worries. The Hendersons, my daughter Leona's place, her husband Wilbur, and my grandson Amos, Martha, used to worry about that boy when she was here to worry about anything at all. 6 months since I lost her, worrying felt like my only hobby. I stared at Doug's message until the edges of the screen blurred. The clock read 2:30 p.m. I put the Chevy in reverse. Roads were already slick. It's the kind of slick that looks like shine until it spins you. I kept it steady, wipers fighting to keep up. The radio found a classic rock station, same one Martha and I used to listen to on drives when the world made a little more sense. Led Zeppelin thumped out something heavy that matched the weight in my chest. On the passenger seat sat 2 gift bags. One held a real leather baseball glove for Amos, more than I wanted to spend, and worth every cent to see his face. The other had a stack of old-school Comics Bright covers, big heroes, the kind he'd read since he was 12. He was 18 now. Maybe he thought he was too old for them. I remembered 18. You're never too old for heroes. Family is all we have left, Martha used to say when she caught me grumbling about holiday visits. She was right then. I wanted her to be right now. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me where you're watching from. Some chirpy voice popped out of a news app ad when I checked the map. I closed it and snorted. People think noise makes a moment bigger. It's the quiet underneath that tells you what matters. I-75 south toward. Cincinnati turned into a string of blinking hazards. We crawled together through the gray afternoon. I tried calling Leona to say I was coming, to make the surprise less dramatic. 6 rings, voicemail strange for Thanksgiving. I pulled into a gas station under fluorescent lights that made everything look cold. Topped the tank. Grabbed coffee and a bag of red and white peppermints Amos liked. The kid at the register shook his head at the window. Roads are getting worse, he said. You going far? Just to Cincinnati, I told him. Family dinner? Be careful out there, he said. 3 wrecks already today. Back in the truck, it was 3:05 p.m. on a good day. The rest of the drive would take 45 minutes. Today, it would take an hour. Maybe more. I kept both hands on the wheel and let the snow stack its quiet on the world. That summer at Lake Erie flashed up in my mind Amos with a fishing rod too big for him, grinning like sunlight when he caught his first base. That's when I noticed the bruise on his forearm. Fell off my bike, he'd said, eyes sliding off mine. It looked wrong. Too precise. Like fingers, I should have pressed harder. Should have asked more questions. I told myself it was a one-off. I told myself what men tell themselves when they don't know what to do with the shape of a fear in their chest. Asterisk. Cincinnati's edges looked like a postcard someone had left in the freezer. Leona and Wilbur's place sat at the end of a short cul-de-sac in a neighborhood of square lawns and flagpoles. The Hendersons had a blow-up turkey bobbing in the front yard, half deflated, nodding at the snow like it was trying to agree with the weather. I parked under the maple that always lost its leaves too early. Stepped out into air that bit like a dog. The world had narrowed to white in the scrape of my boots. Then I saw him. Amos stood barefoot on the sidewalk, in a t-shirt and basketball shorts, bare legs against the wind, skin the color of bad chalk. Arms wrapped around himself so tight his shoulders touched. Steam rose off his head, not from warmth, but from the shock of cold and breath. Amos, I said, voice too loud in the quiet street. He turned his head, slow, eyes wide in a way I had never seen on his face. Grandpa, it came out small. He tried a smile. It cracked. I was at his side before the cold could take another bite. Get in the truck, I said, opening the passenger door so hard it popped. Now, he hesitated. Glanced at the house. Back at me. A flicker of something like apology ghosted across his face, and I felt anger move through my body so clean it made my fingers steady. In, I said, softer and more dangerous. We're done with out here. He climbed in, teeth chattering so hard the bag of peppermints rattled where I'd dropped it on the seat. I cranked the heat, tore open the bag, pushed one into his hand. "Suck on that," I said. "It'll give your mouth something to do besides shake." He laughed, a broken sound, then did what I asked. I took the coat off my back and shoved it around his shoulders. "What happened?" I asked, because if I didn't ask right then, I was going to blow the door off that house with my bare hands. "Wilbur," he said, and flinched at the name like it had hands. Said I mouthed off. Said men learn outside. Mom said, 5 minutes. He looked down at his bare feet. "It's been, I don't know. I got lightheaded." "How long?" He blinked, shook his head. "A long time." The window glass fogged with our breath. I took my phone out and dialed 911 with hands that remembered the order of numbers without looking. 911, what's your emergency? My grandson is standing barefoot in 5-degree weather in a t-shirt and shorts because his stepfather locked him out, I said. He's out of the cold now. He's shivering. I want an officer here. I want a wellness check. And I want a record. The dispatcher took the address. Her voice didn't say anything judgmental. Just steady. "Officers are on the way." "Does he need an ambulance?" "He needs heat and people with authority," I said. "I've got the heat." I ended the call and looked at the house. Through the front window, I could see shapes moving people in warm colors. A table, the blur of a football game on a TV in the other room. Laughter reached me thin through the glass. A shiver moved through the truck knot from the cold. "From me, stay," I told Amos. "Doors locked. If anyone tries to pull you out, lean on the horn and don't stop." He stared at me like I'd offered him a life raft. "Grandpa, I'm not going far," I said. "Just to say 6 words. Asterisk, the snow squeaked under my boots." I took the porch steps in 2 strides. The storm door was propped open. The main door was shut. I didn't knock. I kicked it. The latch tore out of the wood with a sound like a broken bone. The door swung wide and hit the hallway table, sending a stack of mail slithering to the floor. Warmth hit my face like a slap. So did the smell of turkey and cinnamon and something too sweet to be honest. The whole family was facing the dining room, Leona at the end of the table, hair pinned like she'd done it in a hurry and made it look like a choice. Wilbur at the head, carving knife in his hand, sleeves rolled, forearms the color of red clay. Amos's half-siblings, little twins, 8 years old. Freckles outnumbering their teeth sat with paper napkins tucked into their collars. Eyes round, forks froze midway to mouths. The football game murmured in the background like a bystander who didn't want to be called to testify. The room went white. I stepped inside, snow shaking off my shoulders onto their polished floor. Leona stood so fast her chair clattered backward. Wilbur didn't stand. He set the knife down with a click and lifted his chin. "Dad," Leona said. And her voice was already reaching for a story that would make this less bad than it was. I raised a hand. I didn't raise my voice. "He's coming home with me now." 6 words. They hit the room like the floor had dropped a foot. Leona's face folded. Wilbur's went flat as a wall. He said, "Amos," I said, enunciating like prayer in courtroom, "is coming home. With me now." "You don't get to decide that," Wilbur said, all vowels and old anger. "My house. My rules." Behind me, tires whispered on snow. Sirens didn't wail. They never do when they want to know what they're walking into. 2 quick knocks sounded on the open door. "Cincinnati Police," a woman's voice called. Professional warmth wrapped around steel. "Everyone stay where you are, please." Officer Delaney, blonde hair in a neat bun, eyes that missed nothing, stepped over the threshold with her partner. A big man with hands like he'd learned to lift gently. They took in the broken latch, the warm room, the turkey, the red nose of a man who had been outside too long sitting in my truck. "Sir?" she said to Wilbur. "You, the homeowner?" "Yes," Wilbur said. "My father-in-law just kicked Officer Delaney." Raised her hand. "We'll get to that." She looked at me. "You called in?" "I did," I said. "My grandson was locked out barefoot. It's 5 degrees. He's 18. He's shaking in my truck. She turned her head slightly. Partner? He moved to the door, and I heard the passenger side open. A quiet voice. The patient ritual of a blanket and a question and a cup of something hot. I kept my eyes on Wilbur. 5 minutes, Wilbur said. He'll live. Delaney's face didn't move. 5 minutes in these conditions can begin frostbite. Do you routinely use exposure as discipline in this home, sir? Leona made a sound, small and terrible. It was, she started. A choice, I said. Someone's, not his. Delaney looked at Leona. Not unkind. Ma'am, we're going to ask some questions. Your son is 18. He can choose to leave. Tonight he's choosing to go with his grandfather. This is family business, Wilbur said, rising now as if height were proof. This is public safety, Delaney said, and domestic disturbance in process. Take a seat, he sat. It didn't become a brawl. It became paper. Officer Delaney took photos, the broken latch, the open front door, the thermometer on my dashboard showing the outside temp, Amos's feet pink and angry, the t-shirt with its stupid logo that had nothing to do with surviving winter. She asked questions you only ask when you've asked them 1,000 times and still wish you didn't have to. Been out before, Amos? She asked, pen moving. He nodded, eyes on his hands. Couple times. Never this cold. Anyone in this house put hands on you in anger in the last 6 months? He didn't answer fast. Everyone in the dining room held their breath, like maybe not breathing would turn back time. He glanced at me, at the peppermints on my dashboard, like they could give him an answer. Yes, he said. Leona put a hand to her mouth. Wilbur, she said, not a question. He didn't speak. Who? Delaney asked, because she had to. Wilbur, Amos said, and his voice didn't break. And me. I put hands on me. I told myself to take it. That counts, right? Delaney's face softened in a way that made me want to cry and shake someone at the same time. It counts, she said. Her partner came back inside, nodding. He's warming up. Coffee would help. Leona moved as if a string had been pulled. She poured coffee with shaking hands. When she handed it to Delaney's partner, her wedding ring clicked against the mug. Delaney took our statements. She wrote down the small, terrible details that make a story harder to look away from. Sir, she said to me at last, your grandson is an adult. He can leave with you tonight, if that's what he wants. I want to, Amos said from the doorway, wrapped in my coat so deep I could only see his eyes. Good, Delaney said. I'm also filing a report for endangerment and assault. Whether a prosecutor takes it is their choice. But there will be a record. If there are locks changed, you call us. If there is contact that feels like pressure, you call us. Do you have somewhere safe to go? I've got a house, I said. Room heat? A washer that groans and does the job. Delaney looked at Leona. Ma'am, she said, and her voice did that thing where it shifts from official to human without losing its authority. I'm going to give you a number. It's not just for when things are bad. It's for when you need to learn what good looks like again. Leona took the card. She didn't cry. The twins did, their tears falling into their mashed potatoes in the way kids. Bodies tell the truth even when the room won't. Delaney turned to Wilbur. Sir, a restraining order isn't being served tonight, but I strongly advise you to make better choices starting now. He stared at the turkey like it had betrayed him. He disrespected me, he said, and I saw something small in him trying to explain itself away. He's not your soldier, Delaney said. He's a person. In this city, we don't freeze people into compliance. When the officers left, the room felt like a balloon that had lost its air. Amos shuffled into the hallway, my coat swallowing him. He put his hand on my arm. It surprised me how soft his palm felt through my sleeve. Let's go, I said. Leona stepped into our path. Dad, she said, voice low, almost a whisper, the kind that hurts the throat. Bring him back for dessert. I looked at her. At the twins. At Wilbur, who stared at the wall like if he didn't move, the day couldn't move him. No, I said. Not tonight. Her face changed. Not into anger. Into something older than that. Okay, she said. Okay, asterisk. I didn't look in the mirror as we pulled away. The turkey in the yard nodded at us like an idiot. The Chevy's heater roared. Amos's breath evened out, shiver turning to the kind of shaking that means your body is coming back to you. "Grandpa," he said after a mile. "Thanks. Don't thank me," I said. "You did the brave part." "What brave part?" he asked, mouth trembling around the peppermint. "You said it out loud," I said. "That's the part men like us miss. We go quiet when we should go heavy with words. We're not doing that anymore." He nodded and turned his face to the window. Snow made the world smaller and quieter and somehow more honest. We stopped at a Walgreens with its lights too bright for the weather. I bought him socks, sweatpants, a hoodie. He put them on in the truck, cheeks turning pink as sensation returned to his legs. "Hurts," he said, half smiling. "Good hurt," I said. "Means you're alive." We drove through the part of the city where everything is a little more banged up and honest. Past the Hendersons' church, the Hendersons' hardware, the Hendersons' everything. Funny how a last name can hold a place like a fist. "Grandpa," Amos said, eyes on the road. "I want to finish school." "You will," I said. "You'll sleep. We'll make a plan. You'll finish. And if Wilbur shows up at my house, I'll be talking to the sheriff before he finds my doorbell." Amos laughed, a real sound this time. "Mom's going to get it," he said. And his voice bent around the truth it didn't want to say. "She's going to get help," I said. "And you're going to be where help can find you." We pulled onto my street, quiet as a held breath. I kept the porch light on for Martha, even now. "A home should never greet you in darkness," she used to say. The yellow glow hit the snow and made it look like a miracle we got to keep. Inside, I made hot chocolate in the dented pot Martha used for such things. Amos took his mug with both hands. His fingers had stopped trembling. Mine hadn't entirely. "You can have the spare room," I said. "Sheets are clean. We'll go to the school Monday. We'll get your records. We'll call." I stopped. "We'll call what needs calling." Amos nodded into his mug. Okay, he fell asleep on the couch, my coat a blanket. His mouth open like when he was 8, and I let him fall asleep during a late game. I sat at the kitchen table, with the old rotary phone and the smell of cocoa still in the air. I dialed. "Officer Delaney," her voicemail said. "Leave it, Delaney," I said. "It's Frank Bennett. We're safe. I want to make a formal statement tomorrow. I also want to talk about orders. And about what it takes to make sure tonight is the worst night we have to remember." I hung up and looked at the photo of Martha on the fridge. She was laughing at a joke no one else heard. "I did the 6 words," I told her. "You'd have said them faster." Outside, the snow kept telling the world to hush. The house settled. My grandson slept. And something that had been bent inside me began slowly to straighten by dawn. The snow had softened into a steady fall that made the street look like it was being rewritten in white. Amos shuffled into my kitchen in a borrowed hoodie and socks, hair standing up on one side. He held the coffee mug in both hands like it was something alive. "How's it feel?" I asked. "Like I had the flu and now I don't," he said. "I can feel my toes." He wiggled them with theatrical care and winced. Mostly, I drove him to urgent care anyway. The doctor, a woman with a name tag that said Dr. Carlisle and a voice that sounded like it had talked, scared people into calm more times than she could count, took his temp, checked his ears, scraped frostnip charts into her tablet, and looked at the redness along his calves. "Lucky," she said gently. "Another 20 minutes, and we're talking a different conversation. Keep warming slow. Ibuprofen for the ache." And she lowered her voice. "If this is about more than weather, I'm a mandated reporter. Do you want me to call it in?" "He's 18, I said, and watched her face tilt to the facts. "Then I call this in as a welfare check for the younger children in the home," she said, tapping the screen, "and I document what I see for your grandson." "Thank you," I said. 2 words I used to think of as small. They aren't, on the way back. Amos leaned his forehead against the cool glass and watched the world break open a little where our tires passed. "I dreamed last night I was still out there," he said. Then I woke up and the heat was loud. I cried like a kid. "You had a hard night," I said. "I had a hard year," he said, and didn't apologize for the shape the words made in the air. We stopped at the grocery for real food. Not the kind that pretends to be food with a commercial. Eggs, bread, oranges, a roast chicken because we still deserved meat on Thanksgiving weekend. The woman at the register, Mrs. Klein, who'd slipped us extra lemons when Martha was sick-handed, Amos a bag of rolls without ringing them up. "Happy Thanksgiving," she said, like a benediction. Back home, my phone buzzed. "Officer Delaney, Mr. Bennett," she said. We logged the report. I also called it in 2 child services for the little ones. "You and Amos okay to come by the station today to give supplemental statements and pick up the copy for court?" "We are," I said. "And Delaney?" "Yes, sir. Thank you. Do you want to pursue a civil protection order?" she asked. Given what he alleged and the photos, Hamilton County typically grants an ex parte temporary order until a full hearing. "Amos?" I asked. He nodded, eyes on the steam lifting from his mug. "I don't want him showing up at your house," he said. "Or mine. Or school." "Then yes," I told her. "We'll come in. Asterisk." Monday morning, the halls at Westview High smelled like pencil shavings and wet coats. We sat in the front office on chairs designed by a committee that hated the human spine. The secretary offered us coffee strong enough to see through. The walls had posters about finals week anxiety and a banner that read, "You belong here," like a dare to anyone who wasn't sure. Ms. Patel, the guidance counselor, ushered us into her office. She wore a cardigan that had seen some years and a look that told me she'd learned to make space at her desk for stories. "Amos," she said. "I'm glad you're here." She looked at me. "Grandpa." "Frank Bennett." She motioned to the chairs. "Delaney called me this morning," she said without preamble, blessing her. "She asked me to fast-track anything we can to keep you safe and steady." Amos's shoulders dropped a fraction. "First things first," Ms. Patel said, clicking her pen. "We'll update your emergency contacts, Mr. Bennett, your primary. Do we need to flag the file that this student is not to be released to Wilbur Henderson under any circumstances without a court order?" "Yes," I said. "And if a court order shows up, we'll be here with ours." "Good," she said. "Second, credits. You've missed some days. You've turned in assignments at 2 a.m. I'm not asking why that's between you and you. But I need to know what you want. Graduate on time? Delay a semester GED? "Graduate," Amos said, almost before she'd finished. "On time, I can work with that," she said. "We'll look at credit recovery packets for the 2 classes you're lagging in. We'll see if we can get you into the afternoon lab with Mr. Alvarez's. Good with kids who need a quiet room and a teacher who doesn't take it personally when someone stares at a wall for 10. Minutes before starting work, Amos smiled into his sleeve. "I like walls," he said. "Me too," she said. "They don't ask questions." She glanced at the file. "Baseball." Amos looked up. "Spring tryouts." She nodded. "I'll talk to Coach Jennings. He's decent. He's also not stupid. If he thinks you're using the field to outrun a situation, he'll make you run laps until you're ready to run toward it." "Deal. Deal," Amos said, a little light entering his voice. We signed papers, swapped numbers, and left with a stack of forms in a folder Ms. Patel had labeled with a sticker. "Amos, do not lose." It felt like someone had handed us a life jacket with paperwork attached, in the hall. A lanky boy in a Letterman jacket raised a hand to Amos. "Hey," he said. "You okay?" Amos lifted a shoulder. "Getting there. Cool," the boy said, and meant it in the old way cool-like shade on a hot day. Not cool like distance, asterisk Hamilton County. Courthouse is the kind of building that makes you feel like your feet should be quieter on the floor. We filed for a civil protection order in a room where the clock ticked loud and the pens were on chains like anyone was going to run off with a ballpoint. The clerk, Ray Roots, red nails, a voice that could talk a riot into a line, helped Amos fill out the forms, household member. She asked, Yes, Amos said. Stepfather. Described incident. She asked. He wrote in a hand that had done hard work lately. Locked outside barefoot in 5-degree weather. Hit in September. Threats. She scanned it and gave a small nod like he'd just done something right that mattered. We took our packet to the domestic relations window. An hour later, we were ushered into a small courtroom with chairs that had seen the backs of more hurt than seemed fair. A magistrate in glasses that made him look like everyone's patient uncle read through the pages quickly and slowly. Mr. Bennett, he said to Amos, I'm granting an ex parte temporary order today. No contact. Mr. Henderson is to stay 500 feet from you, your school, and your grandfather's residence. Surrender of firearms to the sheriff within 24 hours if he has any. Full hearing in 10 court days for a longer order. He peered over the pages. Do you feel safe with this for now? I do, Amos said, and his voice didn't shake. We left with copies in a manila envelope. The paper felt heavier than paper ought to. The way a key sometimes feels heavier than metal because of what it opens and what it keeps shut. Delaney called that evening. Service complete, she said. He took it without shouting, which surprised me. We did the firearm surrender, one hunting rifle. Leona was there. She cried. I gave her the advocate's number again. How are the twins? I asked CPS did the welfare check, she said. Opened a case. That doesn't mean a removal. It means eyes. It means a plan. Good, I said, and meant it less like a fist and more like a prayer. Asterisk, you show a town who you are. The town shows you back. Mrs. Klein showed up with a pan of lasagna big enough for a family I didn't have in my house yet. Eat half, she ordered. Freeze the rest for a bad day. My neighbor. Doug came by with a snowblower and the kind of male apology that comes wrapped in a tool. You don't have to use the shovel this winter, he said. I got you. The pastor from Leona's church left a voicemail I didn't return. The man had preached forgiveness last year like it was a life hack. This year, he preached accountability because the congregation had discovered it was a word in the Bible. Coach Jennings called. Kid shows up. I'll put him to work, he said. Not as a favor. Because he can play. Because he can learn what a team feels like when your house doesn't have one. Leona texted late one night. The twins are scared of the wind. What do? I called her so she didn't have to text an answer into a dark room with more watching than help. You get on the floor with them, I said. You make a tent out of blankets. You tell them the wind is big, and so is the house. You lie if you have to. I'm sorry, she said.
Ow.
And it came out of her on a wave of breath, like she'd been saving it up and found out it didn't buy as much as she hoped. I know, I said. Get the help. I'll help you get it, she did. She called the number Delaney gave her. A woman named Kendra from Lighthouse Family Services started showing up on Tuesdays at 4 o'clock. Pressed shirts and a binder, the kind of person who can look at a room and find the exits and the light switches. They wrote a safety plan. They changed how keys were held. The twins learned what a code word is. Leona learned to say no out loud in a kitchen where the word had been banned. Thanksgiving weekend. Vertugo plates appeared on my porch. Wrapped in foil and labeled in a neat hand. Turkey, stuffing, sweet potatoes, pie. No note. I recognized the handwriting anyway, Leona's. She'd found a way to send thanks without sending her children into the kind of dark I'd kicked my way into. Asterisk. Woke at 2:12 a.m. to the motion light popping on. Old habit sat me up before thought could. I looked out through the curtain and saw a figure on my walkway, hands jammed into a coat. The porch light turned him from shadow into Wilbur. My phone was already in my hand. Delaney, I said when she answered, and she didn't say hello because she knew better than to waste a second. He's here. Stay inside, she said. We're on the way. He raised his hands, palms out. I'm just here to talk, he called. Voice loud in a neighborhood that doesn't like to admit it's awake. Court order says you're not, I called back. My words came out even. I surprised myself. Step off my property man to man, he said. We can handle this. Man to paper, I said. That's how we're doing it now. He laughed. The sound wasn't nice, but it wasn't wild either. You think paper can raise a boy? No, I said. Men do. But paper keeps men honest. Blue lights bent around the corner. He turned, shoulders tight, as if the law was a storm you could outrun if you got a head start. Officer Delaney and her partner stepped out, calm as people who knew which scene this was. "Mr. Henderson," she said, "you're violating a court order." Turn around, he did. For a second he looked at me, not like a man about to fight, like a kid who never learned another way. I didn't look away. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for a person is stand, exactly where the consequences are, and not move. They cuffed him. He didn't pull away. Delaney read him the rights she'd read to better and worse men than him. He nodded at the right places. They took him in. The porch light, HUMMED. Amos came into the hall, hair up, eyes clear. "He gone?" "He is," I said. "Good," he said, and leaned his shoulder against the wall like he could finally put weight on something that would hold in the morning. Delaney called. "He was released on his own recognizance with a court date and a warning," she said. "Typical for a first violation? Mandatory classes. No contact terms remain. We'll see if he respects paper better on the second try." "He will," I said. "Or he'll learn too." She paused. "You okay?" "I'm better than a week ago," I said. "So is he," she said, and I knew she meant Amos. We hung up. I stood at the kitchen window and watched the light pour itself over the snow like honey slowly. The way good things happen when people decide to stop pretending time can be bullied. Amos patted in, took an orange from the bowl, and began peeling it carefully. The skin coming off in one long, winding strip like he was trying to save the shape. He handed me half without looking. We ate standing up. "What now?" he asked. "Now we go to school," I said. "We go to court. We go to baseball practice. We eat dinner like it's a job. We sleep. We do it again. We let the people who want to help us. And we remember that heat is not a luxury." He nodded. "Okay," he said. "Okay." The words filled the kitchen the way Martha's laugh used to. Different music. Same room, asterisk. 10 court days later, we sat in a small courtroom with walls the color of oatmeal and a clock that clicked too loud. Amos beside me. Leona too rose back with Kendra from Lighthouse Family Services. Wilbur at the respondent's table in a suit that didn't quite fit, public defender at his elbow. The magistrate read everything. Dr. Carlisle's urgent care notes. The photos Officer Delaney took of Amos's feet. A statement from Ms. Patel, describing the academic slide, the late assignments, the kid who kept showing up anyway. Coach Jennings sent a letter that said simply, "This young man is on my team. I'll keep him there if the court keeps him safe." "Mr. Henderson," the magistrate said, peering over the frames, "do you have anything you wish to say?" Wilbur stood and said the sentence men like him always practice. "I never meant any harm." Then, almost as an afterthought, he disrespected me. The magistrate's face didn't change. "Children are not a weather vane for your temper," he said. He glanced at Leona. "Ms. Henderson, Lighthouse's advocate has filed for a separate order in your name and on behalf of the twins. We'll hear that next." He turned back to Amos. "Mr. Bennett, I'm granting a full 5-year civil protection order. No contact. No proximity. He will complete a batterer's intervention program in anger management. He will surrender any firearms and will not possess any for the duration of the order." He looked at Wilbur again. "Violation will result in arrest. You will treat paper as if it has hands." The gavel fell. The sound was small and definitive. Paper. Again, doing what it does when men decide to respect it or be taught to. Leona's hearing took another hour. The magistrate granted her an order as well temporary exclusive occupancy of the house pending the divorce filing. Supervised visitation for the twins at the Family Visitation Center downtown, CPS oversight. She sobbed once when she said the words exclusive occupancy. A sound like a rope snapping and the boat swinging back to the dock. When it was over, Delaney met us in the hallway and handed Amos the stamped copy. "Keep one with you," she said. "One at school. One here." She tapped his chest. Remember, this isn't a shield you hide behind. It's a line he can't cross. Amos nodded. I won't forget. Asterisk, we helped Leona move 2 weeks later. Kendra found a small 2-bedroom apartment on the second floor of a brick building near the twins' school. It smelled like old wood and fresh paint and possibility. The super fixed the latch twice without being asked. Leona bought a lamp with a ridiculous shade because the twins laughed and picked it out. That alone made it worth the $20. We carried up boxes labeled with the new language Kendra had taught us. Important. Safe, winter, memories. The twins' room got string lights and a paper chain they made themselves. The code word laminated on the fridge read sunflower. If one of them said it in a sentence, everyone dropped their forks and went to the hallway by the door, no questions asked. Practice makes muscle memory. That first night we ate pizza on the floor because chairs could wait. The twins fell asleep on a pile of blankets, mouths open like puppies. Leona stood in the hallway staring at the deadbolt she'd turned herself. I forgot what it feels like to lock a door and have it mean safety. Not silence, she said. It'll mean both for a while, I said. Then mostly safety. We left the porch light on because I still believe in that. The hallway light in her building glowed an anemic yellow that somehow did the job. Nobody was outside in the cold. Nobody would be. Asterisk baseball season came as if the calendar had remembered to be kind. Amos showed up to tryouts in last year's cleats and a breath that didn't fog with fear anymore. Coach Jennings put him at short for infield drills. He moved like someone whose body was his again at the first home game. He hit a line drive that kissed the left field line and turned into a stand-up double. The stands weren't full, but they were loud enough for courage. The twins screamed like sirens. Leona clapped until her hands went red. I stood and cheered in a way I would have found embarrassing a year ago. After the game, Miss Patel pulled us aside. There's a scholarship, she said. Local, small. For kids who've had to grow up fast and kept going. I nominated you. A month later, we sat in the Westview Auditorium under a squeaky banner that said Senior Honors. Amos walked across the stage in a borrowed tie, in shaking hands, and took a certificate. That meant a summer job wouldn't become a second job during school. He looked out into the seats and found us. Leona cried. The twins waved like they were signaling a ship. In June, he walked again, this time in cap and gown. The tassel tickled his cheek. When he turned it from one side to the other and through the cap, I swore I heard Martha laugh in the back row. That particular delighted sound she made when something went right for someone she loved. Asterisk. Wilbur took the classes the court told him to. Batterer's intervention. Tuesday night in a basement where a counselor who looked like someone's aunt said the same true thing 40 different ways until men with tight jaws heard it. Control is not love. He filed for visitation with the twins. The magistrate kept it supervised. He petitioned to modify the order with Amos. The magistrate denied it without a hearing. No new facts. Order remains. One thick envelope arrived at my house in late summer. Forwarded through his attorney, because paper knows how to keep lines intact. Inside was a letter. Not sorry like men write when they want something. Sorry like someone had been made to hold up a mirror and keep looking. Frank had said in a handwriting that had lost some swagger. Won't show up at your door again. I was wrong. I believed respect was owed to me, not earned by me. I believed punishment taught. It doesn't. I won't ask Amos to forgive me. I will leave him alone. W.I. didn't write back. The order said I shouldn't. Some silences are the correct size for the lesson. Leona filed for divorce. The judge signed the decree that fall. She got custody of the twins, the right to make educational and medical decisions, and the quiet relief of not asking permission to make breakfast. They still asked for their father sometimes. Love is messy that way. They saw him in a room with cameras and a supervisor and a jar of dull crayons. Sometimes they came home cranky and confused. Kendra helped Leona name that feeling for them. You can miss someone and not go where they are. Asterisk by November. My dining table had more scratches than it used to, and more chairs than it had last year. We decided to do Thanksgiving at my house. Leona made the turkey with a YouTube video open on her phone, like a sous chef. The twins set name cards and argued about where the olives should go. Amos brought a pie he actually baked. I peeled potatoes the way Martha taught me fast, no wasted flesh, tidy into a bowl. I checked the weather twice out of habit. Single digits in the morning. 20s by dinner. Coats by the door, hats on a hook, boots lined up, heat humming like a promise kept. Officer Delaney stopped by at noon with a bag of rolls and her partner's laugh. "I'm off in an hour," she said. "My mom's expecting me, but I wanted to see you with the light on." "Always," I said. We ate at 4. We said what we were grateful for without being saccharine about it. The twins said, "Heat," and we all laughed, then nodded. Because yes, heat. Amos said, "Paper." Leona said, "Help that comes on Tuesdays," I said. Second chances, and meant it in a wide circle. For me, for Amos, for Leona. Maybe one day for Wilbur if he kept his distance and kept doing the hard, quiet work men rarely get credit for. After dinner, we walked outside to see the first fine snow begin again. The twins stuck out their tongues. Amos stood on the porch with his hands in his pockets and looked down our street like it was his for the walking. Nobody was shivering. Nobody was locked out. The 6 words I'd said a year ago hung in the air like breath still true. Still working? He's coming home with me now. They were the start of the kind of justice that changed us not. It allowed kind with a fight on the lawn. But the kind on paper and in kitchens and in offices where people sit with pens and make plans, we didn't get revenge. We got safety. We got sleep. We got a table that always has one more chair, asterisk. When everyone slept, I sat at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee I didn't need, just to be in the sound of the house holding us. I looked at Martha's photo on the fridge, her laughing at something only we knew. "We did it," I told her, "because I believe in talking to the dead when the living need witness." We said the words. We did the paper. We turned the lock, and it meant what it should. Outside, the snow kept making the world quiet. Inside, my grandson breathed in the spare room like a boy who trusted the night. Leona dreamed the kind of dreams you get when you aren't rehearsing your explanations anymore. The twins kicked off their blankets and found them again. I walked the hall, tugged quilts up, and turned the thermostat down 1 degree because Martha would have teased me if I didn't. Before I went to bed, I turned on the porch light and left it the way she taught me. A home should never greet you in darkness, and this one won't. Not anymore. Not ever again. Asterisk.